We're rolling. I'll probably give just a minute or so for any people who haven't joined yet, just to log in and get started. So it sounds like it's been a busy week for you two then, Anna and Adam.
Yeah, it's just I'm on holiday and I'm enjoying life at the minute. What about you, Adam?
Are you away somewhere, Anna, or are you?
Oh, I wish. No, it's just a minor health problem that I had to look just looking after myself for a bit. So I thought, yeah, let's just book some time off. Yeah.
Good for you.
Good. No,
Excellent.
my week was that last week. I was skiing in Spain and it was wonderful.
Ooh,
But
so nice.
no, this week is the opposite.
I
No.
feel left out because this is the first year where we're now having to deal with the academic school holiday calendar. So unfortunately, my holidays are tied to half terms and summer holidays and all of those,
Oh, right.
all of those fun things.
Oh yeah, mine are
Yes.
too. Mine are too. But the good thing is that Scottish school holidays don't really overlap so much with English school holidays.
Oh,
They're a bit
nice.
different. So
Right.
yeah, flights and things are not quite as expensive as they are for you.
Yeah, you can get away with that. Absolutely. Nice. Good for you. Good for you. He says between gritted teeth. Um, okay, we're a minute past. Thank to anyone who's here and listening and watching us. Just talk away. Thank you. I'll jump in and get started. So, hi everyone. My name's Mark. I'm the head of talent at Chronify. We are interview scheduling experts. We solve complex problems in interview scheduling through our API and scheduler application for companies around the world. And I'm welcoming you to our webinar on the evolution of AI in FinTech Talent Acquisition 2025. We're joined by two brilliant guests as we take you on a journey through the tools and processes and tactics that our industry is using to hire the very best talent and provide really a great candidate experience. So although we'll be focusing on the FinTech sector, everything that we're going to talk about today is applying to all sectors and industries. So I really hope that you'll all be able to take something useful away. And we'll have a Q&A section at the end. So please feel free to post any questions into the chat function. So I'm going to welcome Anna and Adam. I'll let you both introduce yourselves. Anna, do you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna, as you know already. I'm at the moment working for SAPI. I'm the head of people and talent over there, so covering both remits, talent acquisition, and very much HR. Yeah, I suppose in terms of best practices and everything that I'm bringing at the moment to this webinar and very much to SAPI, I've cut my teeth in businesses like Twilio, Trainline, and Google. So that's me really, about 10 to 11 years in a nutshell experience. And I moved from talent acquisition slowly into the more HR sort of remit. So that's me. And yeah, I'm extremely excited to be talking today to Mark and to Adam.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Pleasure to have you. Adam, yourself as well.
Hi everybody. So I'm Adam. I've been in recruiting since the late 1900s, and I wasn't a particularly great employee. I worked for other organizations, including Havas People, the recruitment marketing company, as well as PwC in the first 10 years. And then I've spent the last 15, 16 years as an entrepreneur building companies in this space. The first one was a services company, which we sold to Norman Broadbent PLC, the executive search firm. Second one was my first foray into technology. It was a company called Candidate ID, which 6 years after we started it, we sold that to iCIMS, the applicant tracking system business. I did a lot of work in the area of automation in that company and got very, very familiar with the possibilities and how we can really create more productivity within talent acquisition teams. And over the last 18 months, I've been building a company called Poetry, which is very much an AI business in the area of recruiter enablement with 28 solutions. So I have kind of almost had two career, well, kind of, yeah. I mean, the last 8 years has been completely dedicated to technology solutions within the talent acquisition space. And I'm looking forward to talking with Mark and Anna.
Amazing. Thank you so much, both of you. I really appreciate that. I think one of the things I reflected on a little bit is that I think we've got a really nice balance here of experience internally, but also on what other teams are doing as well. I think we've got a good insight too into, of course, the fintech sector and outside that as well. So to kick off, I think for me personally, I've seen a race for top talent across all industries heating up. And I've also seen a focus on key metrics like time to hire being predominantly the key to success. However, candidates aren't thinking the same thing. We run a candidate expectations report every year. And in our most recent report, it shared some really amazing findings. And I wanted to highlight some of the responses from the fintech sector specifically today, really to help set the scene for today's discussion. Why is this? There we go. So fintech candidates experienced the longest waiting times for interviews on record last year. 37% said that they would disengage with the role if it took a month or longer to book an interview. We found that candidates in the fintech space are the most sensitive to time delays. A higher proportion of these candidates compared to other industries say that kind of back and forth emailing and delays or disorganized interviews were a real significant source of frustration in processes. And although we can take examples of interview scheduling here, but the frustration of unnecessary time being added to the hiring process can extend to other tools or in some cases, the lack of tools. The time to schedule, for example, is affecting how candidates are perceiving their potential employers, with nearly half of them saying that they would leave a process because of how long it takes to book an interview in. And we know that poor hiring has a significant impact on candidates' mental health, contributing to stress levels, frustration, and anxiety. And these candidates aren't shy about sharing that experience either. We're in an era now where there are platforms and places where people will go to vent frustration. A quarter of candidates told us that they would warn colleagues or peers about poor hiring practices. But on the bright side, a smooth experience, recruiting experience or candidate experience contributes to accepted offers. 3/4 of candidates in this sector told us that the smoothness of a process is a key factor when deciding between offers. And despite the wish for automation leading into our topics for today, 80% of candidates said to us that they still want to have someone to contact during the recruitment process. And I think this is really why successful teams need to find that balance between tools such as AI and automation and that human touch as well. And as I said a bit earlier, these findings aren't unique to the fintech sector. We've obviously highlighted some of them today, but we're seeing these types of results and this type of data across the board, across industries. I should add, for those listening today, we will share the full hiring report for anyone who attended, so please do keep an eye out for an email from me. But I've done a lot of talking, so I want to hand over to our guest here and kind of start this conversation. And start by getting to know a little bit more about your industries and how trends have changed for softer skills. In the example of fintech, it's a particularly fast-moving sector. I think it used to be very traditional. And with kind of startups, I feel that it's kind of influenced what you look for when you're hiring and how to identify the very best candidates. So my question to you both is, are you seeing any trends right now in the demand for softer skills in your industries, and kind of how is that shaping your hiring strategies? Anna, can I start with you, if you don't mind?
Absolutely, sure. My short answer before I go into details is yes. Absolutely. So I think from my side, I think soft skills have always been incredibly important. And I've very much grew into, my roles in recruitment with that sort of philosophy. But you are absolutely correct, Mark. I think, it is fair to assume that, the demand is increasing in terms of whatever we used to call soft skills, because of course people have different definitions of it. I suppose it's not a surprise. So I'm going to basically make 2 points in this regard. The first thing is that, of course, soft skills are important in general, right? They underpin collaboration, they underpin successful problem solving. They are important, and I think they've always been important. Now, of course, I was very much trained in terms of in-house recruitment as a first rodeo over at Google, which I think is well known that as a company prioritizes soft skills in their interview process. So that's the first part of my answer, I suppose. And the second part has very much to do with our conversation today. We're pretty much discussing today about AI, I suppose, that underpins our conversation.
Mm.
And of course, the fact that AI becomes more and more prevalent in our industry, in most industries really, means that everything that can be automated or everything that can be done by AI or artificial intelligence will be done by that sort of system, right? So what will become the core of our contribution as people, I think, will be soft skills. That's really how I see it. And of course, that very much led our hiring strategy in the last roughly 18 months over at Sappi.
Nice. So the the growing importance of the contribution of softer skills is shaping how you're hiring and how you're choosing to identify applications.
Definitely, definitely. I wouldn't say at the application stage. I think that's
Yeah.
hard. Anyone that
Mm.
tells you they can tell easily from a CV,
Mm.
how good someone's soft skills might be, is, in my opinion, not being entirely truthful. I think it all kind of comes to light when you have the first interview. So I think it's key to hire, first of all, much like I did over at Sappi, hire a great sourcer that has
Mm.
emotional intelligence and that can figure out, right, if someone has the right soft skills or not. And then, of course, this informs the entire hiring strategy and the entire hiring process, because then the next interview, at least at Sappi, is with myself. And I do a very thorough 45-minute assessment of someone's cognitive abilities, soft skills, how they might add to our culture and so on. So I think it needs to be really robust from the very beginning through that conversation with initially a sourcer and afterwards with a recruiter or head of people or whoever is in charge of driving recruitment.
Mm.
That's my view of it, and that's how we've done it at Sappi. And I have to say it's worked really, really well. I guess the easiest way to measure that is, do people get along? Do people pass probation? And are they, achieving after 1 year in their roles?
Nice. That's a really interesting insight. Thank you for that. Adam, we've not been ignoring your promise. How about you? Are you seeing any trends for softer skills in industries? How's that shaping hiring?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just quickly address some of the statistics from the research. Like the fintech area is one of the most dynamic to hire for. Some of the most technical skills are required. Some of the most deep sort of subject experts are required. And it literally makes the difference between your company succeeding and your company failing, is getting back to people and having a great reputation as an employer. And if there are more people who have an impression of your company from having been a candidate at some point than there is actually working in your business today, that's a really, really big kind of brand issue. And so when we think about employer branding, you shouldn't just be thinking about what does your career site look like and what's your employer value proposition. Every single touch point with your organization is part of that employer brand, from how they apply through to how the interview works and how they're treated and how the interview's scheduled and like all of that sort of thing. Delays make your company look incompetent. Delays are just really bad reputation for your organization. And as you said, people will talk to each other. And within fintech, especially in a city like London, where despite being a major fintech capital, it's still not like a huge industry like retail or something like that. And so people will talk to each other and word gets around. On the aspect of soft skills, I think there's a few things that I'd like to add on that. The first is that we are in a more tech-enabled environment than we ever have been. The chief financial officer has an active objective to reduce cost wherever that person possibly can. They've got an objective to shareholders and to the CEO and to boards. And so every single organization today, especially in a knowledge economy like a fintech type business, every organization is reviewing how do we use technology to do things that humans have been doing that really they don't need to be doing today, right? This is brutal, what I'm saying, but it's the truth. And if your company's not doing it, then they're probably going to become inefficient and uncompetitive because the other organizations in your industry will be doing it. And there's some very, very famous examples, of course, within fintech right now of companies doing this, right? So the reason for mentioning this as a backdrop is because the soft skills that are going to be so much more vital than ever for people working in your company or for demonstrating like that they are a good candidate or that you need to go and try and search for is people who are accustomed to looking for better ways of working, people who are tech fluent, people who are not doing things the way that they were doing them 3 years ago and 3 years before that and 3 years before that. That's a massive red flag for me. And I've got friends, we all have friends who, you know, they say, oh, I'm a technophobe. Unfortunately, being a technophobe is just not acceptable in a white collar environment anymore. You really have to become tech fluent. And so people that don't understand new ways of working and new ways of using technology to, you could call it take shortcuts, but it's be more productive. If they're not doing that as individuals, they're going to get it done to them. And then the second thing is we are, as a result of companies, a lot of businesses are definitely not growing headcount, permanent headcount. And so as a result, each individual has got to be more of a Swiss Army knife than ever. So you've got to be able to accomplish more tasks, do more things, be more adaptable. And you know, if you're only capable of doing one type of thing, and somebody sitting next to you or somebody that's coming in for an interview can do 3 things, then my advice would be you need to give yourself a shake because you've got to be able to do a lot more. They talk about talent density. Talent density within an organization is the average person's ability to fulfill multiple different functions. And this is something that is really tangible. It's not just a concept.
And I like a lot of what you said. I liked everything that you said there. Actually, the adaptability and the talent density. I thought was a really interesting, a nice coin of phrase. How are people able to identify these skills early on in processes? Do you think?
In the how are recruiters
in recruitment? Yeah, correct.
I mean, you know, I'm definitely not an assessment specialist, but I would certainly be asking, what are the technologies and processes that you've been using this year that you weren't using 2 years ago? And what were the technologies and processes you were using 2 years ago that you weren't using 5 years before that? And if the answer is, oh, I've got a great system, I've always done it this way, that's a big red flag, I think. So you really want people to be able to, you want to be able to assess from people, are they adaptable? And are they actively looking for ways to be more productive?
Nice. I think one of the on kind of broadly on the subject of kind of recruitment and assessing softer skills and being able to identify those softer skills, one of the things that we found is that applications have, in the last 12 months, applications have tripled and the competition is incredibly fierce, and being able to identify things becomes a real time saver. But I think one of the things you two have identified to me is it's really about knowing exactly what you're looking for. You know, you talked about that tech fluency, emotional intelligence, Anna, I think you mentioned as well, and the process, Anna, too, that you've gone through in terms of assessing those skills reasonably early on in process. This isn't well, let's just have a little culture meet at the end of an interview process, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, if anything, Mark, to be honest, it's really, I'm the main, if you like to call me blocker, I don't mind being called that, but I'm the main blocker to anyone that doesn't display the right soft skills, even having a chance to be assessed for technical skills, if I'm perfectly honest. So they have to go through, as I said, a 45-minute interview. That's really robust. And that is, again, I'll hold my hand up. It's not something that I came up with, really. It's very much just copied from Google, from my side. It's really just taking all the things that I was trained on there, all the questions that can be asked, and paying a lot of attention to how people answer those questions. That will tell you if they have the right soft skills or not. And it's really far more, it's so simple. It's far simpler than people think. It's really asking people, give me an example of a time when you helped a colleague and they came out successful out of that attempt of support from your side. Tell me about a time when you had a deadline that you had to meet, but a colleague needed your support and how you balanced those two elements. Tell me about a problem that you solved where, maybe someone took more credit than you on a specific project, and how did you deal with that? It's really putting people in scenarios that are tricky for most of us, and seeing how they manage to solve those problems and get along essentially with everyone while reaching that goal.
Nice. They're some awesome examples. Thanks for sharing those, Anna. That's great. I definitely want to make sure that we're able to get through all the topics that we want to today. So I'm going to jump into the kind of meat of things, actually, the reason that a lot of people are probably here today, and talk about new tools, improving operational success. So kind of the things that can contribute to hiring faster, saving time, to giving that great experience. So my question to the panel here is, how are you, or how are TA teams adopting AI tech into processes or workflows? And I'll go the other way around. Adam, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think that the first thing that I would advise an organization to do is really map out all of its processes. And what you're likely to find, if you haven't done this recently, is that there are a lot more processes than you think there are. If I take an example of BT, British Telecommunications, I remember seeing their process workflow around 2 years ago, and had 72 different steps in it. Now, each one of these 72 different steps needs to be assessed for, should a human be doing this? Or is this something that's repetitive and that there's an opportunity to automate or put in place an AI process? A major tech, like iGaming business that I spoke to today, told me they had recently assessed the time that recruiters spend on different tasks, and 69% was spent on what they termed to be admin. And that meant that 69% of a recruiter's time was not spent on finding, nurturing, engaging with the talent that they want to bring into the organization, and really spending, additional time influencing hiring managers and finding out, what additional information they can glean from that person to be able to do a better job on the recruiting. 69% time spent on admin is really poor. So
remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would, however, it's not actually that surprising to me either. So if you take those 72 workflows or processes and then look at, okay, starting in the attraction phase and then through into the recruiting phase and then into the sort of offer management and onboarding or talent pooling and like ongoing nurture, where are the moments that matter? Where are the moments that really matter to candidates who told you in the Chronify report that they want to have more human time with people during a process? When are those times that a human will really add value in each direction? Okay, and it could be the first stage outreach. It could be the first stage conversation to convince them that they should apply for the job. It could be at the end of the first stage interview when they're not entirely sure about, how it went. But I really think 60% of those processes don't need a human to be focused on them. And I haven't been specific in this deliberately yet. I can't get more specific, but there's a very large number of the processes in talent acquisition today that actually don't need a human to be doing it. Maybe somebody designs what the tech solution is and monitors that, but doesn't necessarily press all of those buttons that are the really boring ones, such as scheduling the interview and sending somebody a list of, hey, me and the hiring manager are available at these 6 times. Are you available at them? Oh, none of those. Okay, I'll get another 6 then. Like, I mean, that's an absolute waste of time. And it's one that I bring up a lot.
Nice. So this isn't for you. This isn't about using AI, say, to give you a decision, to give you a yes or a no. AI for you is about streamlining and saving time that can be better spent somewhere else, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it might be to do with assessing candidates. It might be to do with writing recruitment marketing content. It might be to do with developing talent research. There's lots of different ways that it can be applied into there. And I think there is a role for AI within assessing candidates, absolutely. But you really have to think about, are we as an employer in demand here, or is the talent in demand? And you've got to apply the right techniques according to what that balance is. So if we are not in demand and it's the talent that is, we have to roll out the red carpet, and you probably want to make a lot more human interaction during that. But if you post a job on LinkedIn for 24 hours and you get 700 applicants, you can't get through those 700 people without applying some level of automation or AI.
Yeah, understand. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Anna, how about you on adopting AI tech into processes and workflows?
I think the best way to describe what I've tried to do in the last year or so is to say that I've tried to use AI as much as possible, but without giving it away to candidates. So essentially, I think you would, if you were to speak to one of the candidates that we've interviewed in the last 1 year, I think they might be able to confidently say that they didn't notice that we've necessarily used AI. And I think that's the key to getting it right, in my view. I'll explain. So from the very beginning of a process, of a recruitment process, let's say I'm going now to to have my first conversation with a hiring manager. I will simply use a note taker. Right? There's a variety of free ones. We use at Sappi Fathom a lot as a note taker. And of course, in the last couple of weeks, we've also tested Gemini, and we've started using that one as well. This is really new. We're talking in the last 2 weeks. Right? Okay, so that's using AI. I don't have to make notes. I don't have to then email them with my notes. I don't have to waste time on that. But a candidate is, of course, not going to be aware of this, right? Then let's take it further. Let's talk about actual going through actual CVs or putting together a JD. Again, I use at the moment as an ATS Workable, and I'm pleased to say that Workable is really decent when it comes down to their AI functionalities. So there are 2 things that impress me. First of all, I've not written a JD in 1 year. I've absolutely not written a JD or asked the hiring manager to write one. Workable has got the hang of it. Workable understands what we like and what we don't like in terms of phrasing JDs at Sappi, and it basically writes them for us. And then same goes for actually going through CVs. So it's basically myself and another 2 people. That's the team that we have at Sappi. And, those 2 people don't have to go for a customer service role that we're recruiting at the moment. They don't have to go through the roughly 1,000 or 1,500 CVs that come in after a month, right? They just have to look at the functionality in Workable and look at the score that each CV receives, and they will, of course, very easily prioritize the CVs that score the highest. So they may only have to go through 100 CVs, let's say, as opposed to 1,000 CVs, right? That's another way that you can use AI quite easily. And again, the candidates won't necessarily feel the fact that certain things are automated or we're using AI. And then the third one, I guess that's really important and that we're heavily using, and we have been doing that for exactly 12 months because I've just renewed the subscription with them. We use Screen Loop as an interview note taker. It's incredibly useful. It not only basically creates the notes for that interview and pops them into the ATS for me, but it also gives you a score for the interviewer. So I don't have to sit and listen to all the interviews for all the interviewers. I just go to the lowest scores. I watch interviews with the interviewers that have the lowest scores, and I address what issue there might be and how they can improve. And also, it saves me time, it saves them time. They don't have to make notes. Everything's recorded and just pops as information into our ATS.
Nice.
So, these are just a few. I haven't even talked you through, I think I've talked you through probably a third of the ways that we use AI.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
far, none of these are offensive to the candidate. We've not yet made a candidate feel like they don't have that human touch integrated in how we deal with them.
Yeah. So it's able to maintain that certainly human feel to it, which I understand, and it sounds like it's certainly saving time. Do you share any kind of reservations about sort of security and compliance? You know, I know fintech can be a reasonably heavy regulated marketplace. You know, are you worried about how these tools are using data, where that data is going, for example?
Well, absolutely not, because I made from the very beginning sure that I wouldn't have to worry about it. So screen loop, they're absolutely fine in terms of GDPR. Workable, absolutely fine in terms of GDPR. So I made sure that everything is already sorted. It's automated, basically, to delete data, to delete everything according to the consent we ask from candidates when they apply.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no
Interesting.
concerns.
I can relate to that with screen loop. So we, from a personal perspective, we've been really specific with AI to what value we want it to add. And not saying that you're not doing that, of course. For us, it's not necessarily about resistance, but what we want to do with it. And so we use MetaView, for example. That's our interview transcribing tool. And for me, I've used it to build kind of training and coaching material for our hiring managers, similar to, it sounds like how you're using it as well. It's definitely saved me time without needing to sit through interviews or sit through entire recordings at times with the kind of summaries and going straight to questions and things like that has been incredibly useful. Great. Okay. Thank you both for that. I want to move forward and delve a little bit deeper into your processes. We seem to have touched on them a bit there and talk specifically about time to hire. I mentioned right up at the top that there's a race for top talent, but candidates are feeling that interviews seem to be taking longer. So how important is time to hire for the candidate experience, and what are you doing, or what perhaps a TA team's doing to directly impact that time to hire? Adam, shall I start with you this time round? Did I start with you last time? I think I did. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. I really think you need to think about it in the context of, like, how do you want the person to feel? And Anna gave lots of examples in terms of the things that she's applied to her processes that are using AI. And I mean, I don't know, Anna, whether you've considered it like this or not, but that's just brilliant experience design as far as I'm concerned. You've got to think about,
Nice.
how do you want the person to feel? What do you want them to see? What do you want them to, how do you want them to feel? And what do you then want them to do as a result of that? So if you've put really good experience design into your process, then your time to hire or time to progress through the interview should be reasonably quick. If it's too quick, such as they apply and you're on the phone to them 5 minutes later, or they you do the first interview and phone them 5 minutes later to offer them the job, they're going to think this is a little bit strange, right? However, there is an appropriate amount of time, which is not 10 days later after they've applied, you get back to them and say, hey, we liked your CV. It's not 3 weeks later, you schedule a first interview, or there's like a 2-week gap between first and second interview. You want a good cadence of, in the process. And if you know that your hiring managers are going to take a bit longer than you would want to get back to you, have something automated that goes out through Workable or whichever other system you might use, which is after they've applied, they get something 6 hours later, which says, hey, thanks for applying. Just so you know, this is what's happening right now. And here's some of the things you need to know. If you get invited to an interview, here's some of the things you need to know about our company and our culture, and look at this person's employee testimonial, or what it's really like to work here, or whatever it might be. Just continue to give them little bits of information to keep them like excited. And yeah, I mean, like, people are going to feel insulted if you take a long time to get back to them. And if another company is operating in a way which makes them feel like they really are desired, then that company's got a much bigger advantage than you do in securing that talent.
Nice, nice. Do you think that, bit of a broad brushstroke statement here, does a quicker time to hire always mean a better candidate experience?
I mean, it could be too quick, right? So yeah, there's a way of, I mean, it's just like dating, I think. If you leave a first date and text the person 10 minutes later, right, and to whatever, then that might be a bit off-putting. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been in that market, right? But I think that there is an over keenness that you could display. But I think being too quick is much better than having a big gap between phases.
Yeah, understand. I can agree with that. Anna, how about you then? How important is time to hire, in your opinion, for the candidate experience?
I think is really important. And again, I think there is an elegant way of making sure that due diligence is served, but candidates aren't necessarily feeling that, at least the ones that go through all the way through to the final stage. So I'll explain. Basically, what I mean is, I think you just need a very robust process. You need to first agree with hiring managers and interviewers that there are no seconds. You get one interview. It is at this stage of the interview of the process, and that's that. So that old chestnut of finalizing an interview process, and one of the interviewers going, "Oh, I really would love another chat with this person," and you're like, "Yeah, absolutely not." So it's just being really firm, basically, from the very beginning. That's one thing. And then what I mean by a robust process is that I do think that the talent team should shoulder much of the interviewing. So essentially, what we tend to do over at Sappi is I've got a brilliant talent sourcer on board. She's doing a lot of that pre-screening, right? And if they don't pass that pre-screening, she simply rejects them. And she rejects them with an SLA of maximum 3 days. Right?
Okay.
It's elegant, respectful, that's that. If they did pass that pre-screen with Mary, with my talent sourcer, then they go through to me. They will have an interview with me, again, maximum 3 days if they haven't passed. Again, I think fairly elegant in terms of how we treat them. Now, if they do pass that interview with me, we just have very clear stages. I never allow more than another 3 interviews after that at Sappi. And also, I do have to say, I never allow that sort of request of, we're going to send you a task, and you'll take 2 weeks to find time to do the task that will take 8 hours in principle. And then you'll return it to us, and then we'll see what we think. And like, none of that. In my view, if Apple, Meta, and Google can do interviews without requiring tasks, we can all do it. It just takes respect and coordination and hiring smart people that understand that. So you see, I do think that time to hire is impacted if the process is robust and if the talent team shoulders enough and everyone is on board with not delaying it, not avoiding their bias to ask for another interview and another interview and another interview. So this is my philosophy, and I think again, you can only be sure of a philosophy if it works, and so far so good over at Sappi.
Nice. I like that emphasis on the robustness as well, and clear processes too. It feels like there's a bit of a thread of, or a theme of kind of transparency in there as well for the candidate too, so they know what to expect. Adam, you touched on those kind of regular touch points, candidates knowing what needs to be, what's happening along the process. For me, and to kind of weigh in on my experience with this a little bit, I have a bit of an unhealthy obsession with the candidate experience. It's a personal hobby of mine. I don't know is the right answer. My approach has always been, I want candidates to feel like, if this is what it's like interviewing here, imagine what it's like working there. And we've lent really heavily into our commitment to transparency. There's a lot we do around candidate experience, but one thing that we've done as an example is I've created some documentation which lays out our entire interview process that we flag up very early on. It's now that you two have touched on those themes as well. we offer detail right down to kind of our assessment criteria and what we look for in interviews. So it means that candidates are preparing for something quite specific that they're aware of up front, and are therefore for us more likely to provide relevant answers. And what we've seen on the back of doing that is that the increase in the quality of conversations we're having, and a decrease in some of the more traditional questions that can take up a lot of time. You know, what's the dress code, or what are the next steps in the interview process, those things. So, you know, we are relatively light on process, as I say, intentionally. And I think there's probably a fine line between wanting to provide a great experience, using tools and services to maintain that kind of pace and provide that communication. And of course, that sort of over engineering, right? That round of AI questionnaires. Anna, you touched on leading into the bias of hiring managers, right? To have another, um, which I feel can probably lean towards candidates disengaging or perhaps not feeling as valued. You know, I think what we've probably all touched on here a little bit is providing that human touch and the importance of that human touch in the recruitment process as well, right?
Absolutely. And Mark, I'll just jump in very quickly because I love what you've
Mm,
just said, and we do exactly the same. And I'm going to insert very quickly an AI tool that helps with that. So you talked about
okay.
materials, right, that you send to candidates. We do the same, and I love that approach. We actually had our materials done with an AI tool called Gamma. I'm not sure if
Okay.
you're aware of it, but I really love it. Essentially, you just give it a prompt to create a really sleek presentation for you in 10 minutes. And it just does that. And that's how we've created those little packages detailing the actual interview process and what they can expect.
Nice.
And
Nice.
there's one more quick thing that you could call lazy. You could definitely call lazy, but again, there's an AI tool that we've used for it. That's essentially just a little video talking about what we're about and our main two products. And it's done with Synthesia. Again, it
Oh,
took
yes.
half an
Okay.
hour. It literally took half an hour, but it looks like you might think an entire production team was included to create that 5-minute video.
Nice.
It's a
Nice.
window into, I mean, it's a window into the employment experience, isn't it? It's a window into this is what it would be like to work here. So yeah, I mean, it's just so important that you put your best foot forward. But at the same time, it's also important to make sure that you're not painting a picture of working in your organization, which is actually over glamorized. So if you're
Mm.
putting together a candidate experience, which is real red carpet stuff, and actually it's not that great to work in, you can, that's false advertising, right?
Mm. You need to be able to back it up. I completely agree with that. It's yeah, you touched on it a little bit earlier, Adam, but it was a bit of a light bulb. I remember years ago, I remember the light bulb moment, which was, oh, okay, so the employee experience starts at the candidate experience, but that doesn't mean that one needs to be worse than the other. They both have to be great for it to
Yeah.
be a success,
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes that's a great point, a really great point. I want to touch on automation for the next point here. We've definitely talked a lot about it kind of along the way here. You know, automation is here to free up our time. How are your TA teams using automation in workflows? I think we've probably touched on a few things, as I say, but actually one of the things I'm also curious about is how other team members or stakeholders are perhaps reacting to, or how they're adapting to it as well. Anna, I'll start with you. I start with Adam twice last time around.
Absolutely. So in terms of automation, I think I'm also a big fan. You've heard me shouting about lots of tools, some of them free, some of them that obviously have a cost attached to them. I think it's important to mention that we're quite tiny at Sappi, and I have genuinely not automated or spent money on anything that I haven't seen a need for. So
Okay.
we've not massively automated a lot of things, I would say. I think we're at the moment looking into automating messaging for passive candidates. So we're going to use Dripify for that, but we're at the early stages of it. And I guess the other thing that I can pretty much straight away think about is the onboarding process. We've adopted a platform that kind of takes everyone in their first 3 days through absolutely everything they need to do. But my list in terms of automation kind of stops there, if I'm honest. Just because, again, I'm a big fan of seeing, okay, how big are we? What are we actually doing here? What are our needs? What's our budget? So in terms of automation, that's pretty much as far as we've gone.
Okay. So you kept it really light. Nice. Nice. How, so if you take onboarding as that example, how did you identify that that's something that needed onboarding or could benefit from onboarding?
Specifically because we're fairly small, and I did not want to take away a lot of colleagues or a lot of hiring, a lot of managers, essentially people managers, away from their jobs to do something that a tool can do very well. If I've pre-recorded videos, if I've essentially shown with little demos how they can book holiday, or how they can do all sorts of things, right? How a new person can book holiday, or what are our values. They can just watch a video with me presenting that to the entire company. And we've put all of this into a tool called Waybook that basically just allows them for 3 days to go through this without wasting anyone's time. And again,
Nice.
feedback has been really good.
Great. That's good to know. That's a really curious one. Thank you for sharing that. Adam, same for you as well. Automation in workflows.
Well, I mean, the two things that I always encourage companies to look at are, I mean, the absolute biggest time and most boring time suck is, and this is not an advert for Chronify, but it is that interview like scheduling. I mean, having something which can check the hiring managers' calendars, check the recruiters' calendars, check the candidates' calendars, and then just like, you know, orchestrate that whole process is such a massive time saver. I feel really slightly dismayed when I see job adverts for recruitment coordinator jobs, and the main part of their job is coordinating interviews. I just think that's not something for 2025. Stop doing that. The other thing that I think you can do on a light touch basis for not very much money, or on a very sophisticated basis for some money, is in the area of candidate questions. So what questions have they got about working at your company? What questions have they got about the application process, about what it's like to work there, around their compensation and all that type of thing. The implementation of a chat bot will save a recruitment team probably quite a lot of time, and will also help to both attract the people that you want into the organization and repel the people that are not quite suitable, and that actually it's a waste of their time applying because they wouldn't like it in your company, and you wouldn't really want them in your company either. So I think you can do a lot with a chatbot, and that would be a big recommendation.
Nice. Hard to argue with that, actually. And naturally, I'm going to be a bit biased, and we'll kind of move forward onto the Q&A section in just a second. But scheduling for us is of course the big one. We use Chronify to automate our interview scheduling, and was a surprise to me when I joined this business and was using it full time, was how much positive feedback we would get, particularly from candidates who were unsuccessful in the process, who say how much they've enjoyed the experience of interviewing with us. And yeah, giving candidates the chance to choose times based on their own availability. We found that they felt more respected of their time, allows them to move at a pace they're comfortable with, and probably going back a little bit to that the speed, the time to hire for a role versus the candidate experience. Whilst I'm at this junction, and before I move over to the Q&A, and on the topic of scheduling, I wanted to provide a bit of extra insight into how automation, specifically interview scheduling, is making things easier for hiring teams. And we have a case study which we can share from Wise. I've seen that in the fintech space, which showed how candidates were proactively giving positive feedback over more streamlined processes. Wise were able to improve the time to fill, the time recruiters spent chasing calendar slots, the experience of candidates, and I've seen the employee engagement as well, their retention rates, and their employer brand too. And I think, kind of, why is this relevant? Why am I bringing this up? Well, Adam, Anna, you've both given some really incredible, broad, great answers as well. And automated interview scheduling is kind of one of those tools that forms part of that ecosystem. Wise were able to offer real-time availability, which was tough for things like panel interviews, which is a bit wonky at times. Recruiters could schedule interviews on behalf of hiring managers without needing to be involved. And self-scheduling links give candidates that feeling of control over the process as well, without removing the human touch, which we've obviously discussed is really important. Quite simply, Wise were able to give hours and hours of time back per week per team member to do more high impactful work. Adam, 69% on admin, was that the quote?
Yes.
Amazing. Before I jump into Q&As, I want to tell you a bit about us very quickly for those listening. So for 11 years now, Chronify, we've been helping organizations create better scheduling experiences with our API and more recently our scheduler. And we power interview scheduling for loads of major ATS solutions. And we integrate with many of the main recruitment solution providers as well. So if you're using the scheduling feature in some of these products, Chronify is powering that for you. So it's really likely there's people in this room who are already using Chronify without even knowing. Yes, I want to summarize actually very quickly. I think that's probably worth doing because I think you've all made some really relevant points, and you might have noticed I was making, actually, as I look back, terrible notes as we go along. But some of the headlines. So in our industries, we're seeing a real increase in demand for the softer skills. Emotional intelligence, tech fluency, which I really like. I'm going to use that, and that kind of adaptability, doing things differently. And as applications are increasing, it is challenging to identify for those skills. But given the growth of AI and automation, the importance of those skills is becoming bigger. AI is, of course, a really hot topic now, and there's lots of ways to integrate that into your workflows. Recording, interview, transcribing. I know it sounds like we're both using that, but kind of thinking about where the human touch will add value and how tech can save that time. Transcribing JDs, I think, was also mentioned as well. On the candidate experience, it's really important, but time to hire isn't the only factor here. Candidates, we've learned, are willing to wait longer in processes, but the best candidates are still in really high demand. So the importance of moving with intent is absolutely massive. Where I've chosen to look at the transparency route to remove friction, some of the examples you gave was around robust processes and SLAs, maintaining contact is the word. I can't read my own writing. And thinking about the experience design. And Adam, I think you'd said that experience design, I think, is a really nice phrase and something that I hope people will take away here. And automation is saving people time. Candidates want to see it in their interview processes, particularly scheduling. But we talked about messaging, onboarding, questions, and I thought the chatbot was an interesting perspective as well. So hopefully that's a useful refresher. I think I got through that unscathed, just about. I'm going to take it off screen share actually, so we can, so I can go through the questions actually, because they're in the chat function here or in the Q&A section actually. So the first question I've got: what are some areas of hiring that you think that human touch is needed that can't be replaced by AI or automation now? That can't be replaced is an interesting one. Does anyone want to take that? Any thoughts on it so far?
Yeah, sure, I can take it.
Okay.
I think most of us here will agree that offering a role to a candidate is something that is likely to stay with the recruiter in question for quite some time. I think it's just about that that warmth, that human touch, that element of celebrating, right? Congratulating the candidate, celebrating, and of course being there to answer questions in real time. So that's an easy one, I guess. But I guess also I think that first interview as well, or that first screening session, right, with a recruiter or a sourcer. Again, I find it hard to believe that that's another touch point that could be eliminated, because that's how you engage people, right? Then you take them through the process, and at the very end, you essentially offer them the role, or you reject them. I'm another big fan of actually rejecting them in a video call at the very end if they're not being offered. So those are the two main touch points that I see staying with us for a while.
Okay.
What about you, Adam? Any thoughts on this?
Just one more, and that is, if you are looking to hire real in-demand talent where the skills are in scarce demand and there's only a small number of people who can do the job, they're working at your main competitors, you gotta do a lot of convincing them. A human needs to do that. So that might be that first stage phone call when you call them up at their desk at work and say, hey, look, can you talk? Or whatever it might be, or you need to use some real influential writing in that in-mail that you send to them to get them to say yes to doing a quick call with you. If you've only got 10 minutes with that person to convince them that they should be interested in having a call with the hiring manager about the job, a human has to do that.
Mm. Yeah, nice. These are really good examples of things that need to be incredibly personalized. Offer rejection, you're right, that initial approach, probably that initial sale, Adam, actually is kind of what you're referring to. Yeah, great answers, thank you. Okay, I have another question here. How do you deal with pushback against replacing a lot of what junior HR talent does with automation AI? How can we ensure that every junior talent can enter the TA space when their job feels like it might be being replaced? I guess, Adam, it's probably a touch there on your point about coordinators, right? Which I thought was perfectly relevant and justified. But yeah, how can we ensure that junior talent can enter the TA space if their job feels like it might be being replaced? Don't know if either of you have any thoughts on that.
I mean, if you don't mind, Adam, I'll jump in just because, in all honesty, 2 weeks ago, I was thinking about this particular point. I was watching a demo from OpenAI on Operator. I'm not sure if you're aware, but they're preparing to release Operator. And I was thinking, ooh, this is a job that could be, given to Operator in about a year at a time when they might release it in Europe. And I was thinking, oh, how is that going to impact things? And then I caught myself thinking, my people operations partner who joined, she was a lot more junior about a year ago than she is now, of course. But I was thinking, you know what? I'd be a lot more comfortable with her having the support of Operator and then growing maybe even faster in her current role than thinking Operator could replace her. This is, of course, you could say I'm biased, but I would say I'd rather hire someone junior that is really ready to use an agent like that, an AI agent, to maximize their impact and learn to grow quicker. And then, hey, in a year time, she can go and she can have already business partnering discussions instead of me having to run about to do those. So I think we should look at it as this can give junior people the opportunity to just grow faster if they adopt those tools, rather than being pessimistic and think, oh, these things will just replace people and it's all terribly dark.
Nice. So it's about kind of facilitating the experience through tools as opposed to the tools replacing the thing that someone would kind of be doing.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Adam, anything to add? Got another couple of questions. So if you don't, that's happy to.
I don't want to be too dark, but the truth is, there's going to be less jobs in talent acquisition in a year's time than there are today. However, there are going to be more varied and interesting jobs in talent acquisition. There's going to be jobs for experienced designers and enablement people and data analysts and recruitment marketers and tech people. And there are a lot of varied jobs within the talent space now, a lot more than there were this time last year and certainly this time 5 years ago. But like anybody that's coming into this space, they need to understand they've got to be adaptable, they've got to be flexible, they've got to learn new things, and they've got to be willing to, as Anna said, work with tech. If the people that have a lot, the people that can't do that are not going to thrive.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. I totally appreciate it. Totally understand, actually. Okay. I've got one more question here from Sarah. Thank you for sharing this, Sarah. How do you balance hiring candidates who are switched on to automation and utilizing AI within their roles with discouraging the use of generic AI being used in applications or AI providing scripted answers during the interview as well? Yeah, I don't know if you've experienced candidates using AI in the process as well.
I mean, how do we discourage them? I don't think we can discourage them, can we? But I do think that effect that we're experiencing on the candidate side will be counteracted by ATSs getting better and better at scoring CVs. It's happening on both sides, isn't it? On the candidate side, but it's also happening in terms of how we recruit. I do firmly believe that they will cancel each other out. But that's just, again, that's my view. I could be incredibly subjective. So over to you, Adam.
Well, I mean, it's a really interesting challenge that we're facing right now, isn't it? Because if everybody's using AI to create their CV and to create their interview answers, then everybody sounds the same, right? So, how do we actually go about truly identifying somebody's capabilities? Maybe it's time to bin the CV. Maybe it's time to bin interview questions. Maybe it's time to do it in a completely different type of way. I don't know what that is, but I recognize the challenge that Sarah's brought up here. I don't have the answer.
No, that's fair enough. Don't change the process, change the game, right? That's what.
Maybe.
Yeah, nice. Thank you so much. I'm conscious we're on time now, so I need to give you both a massive thank you. If anyone wants to follow up, any other questions, we definitely want to hear. You can find me on LinkedIn. Where can we find you two? Adam, how can everyone follow, keep in touch, speak to you again?
Yeah, they can follow me on LinkedIn as well. Feel free to connect. I'm easy to find. Adam Gordon Poetry. And I'm talking about AI and automation and talent acquisition every single day there.
I can agree with that. I can comment that. Anna, how about you?
Absolutely using LinkedIn. So please do feel free to contact me every time I go on a webinar or some event and I speak. I'm always very open to people contacting me on LinkedIn. I'm very open. So yeah, give me a shout there and I'll answer.
Amazing. Thank you both again for your time. It's so grateful, really useful insight. We'll follow up with case studies and obviously the recording to this too. Enjoy your day, both of you. Enjoy your day, everyone here, and we'll speak again. All right.
Thanks so
Thanks
much.
for now. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.